I think I didn't do anything wrong, just let his friend hold my waist for a laugh. But now I'm holding a folder of legal papers my husband left on the kitchen table. He says he's had enough. I never imagined a simple joke could end my marriage. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. The living room buzzed with conversation and laughter as our friends gathered for what I thought would be another boring Saturday evening. Lucas had invited his work buddies over, and I'd reluctantly agreed to host. At 34, I felt like I was drowning in the monotony of suburban life. Endless cycles of work, dinner, and sleep, with a husband who seemed more interested in his accounting spreadsheets than in me. "Evadne, you look amazing tonight," Simon Patel said, his dark eyes twinkling as he approached me near the kitchen island. At 32, Simon was everything Lucas wasn't: charming, spontaneous, and genuinely interested in what I had to say. "Thank you, Simon. At least someone notices," I replied, glancing toward Lucas, who was deep in conversation with his brother Paul about tax regulations. My husband of 12 years barely looked up from his drink. "Come on, let's get a group photo," suggested one of Lucas's colleagues, holding up his phone. "Everyone gather around." We all shuffled together, and somehow Simon ended up behind me. As the photographer counted down, I felt Simon's hand settle on my waist, his fingers warm through the thin fabric of my dress. Instead of moving away, I leaned back slightly, enjoying the attention I'd been craving for months. 3, 2, 1, the camera flashed. "Perfect, let me take another one," the colleague said. Simon's hand remained on my waist, his thumb tracing small circles that sent shivers up my spine. I caught Lucas watching us from across the room, his jaw tight and his green eyes cold. But instead of feeling guilty, I felt vindicated. Maybe now he'd realize what he was losing. "You two look good together," someone joked, and the group laughed. Simon squeezed my waist gently before stepping away. "Just friends having fun," I said loudly, looking directly at Lucas. "Some people know how to have a good time." Lucas set down his beer with more force than necessary and walked toward the kitchen. I followed him, my heels clicking on the hardwood floor. "What's wrong with you?" I whispered harshly. "You're being rude to our guests." "Our guests?" Lucas turned to face me, his usually calm demeanor cracking. "Since when do you care about my friends? You've complained about every single one of them for years." "I'm trying to be social, Lucas. Maybe you should try it some time instead of standing in the corner like a statue." "Being social doesn't mean letting another man put his hands all over you, Evadne." I rolled my eyes dramatically. "Oh my God, Lucas, it was just a photo. You're being paranoid and jealous over nothing. This is exactly why people think you're no fun." "People think I'm no fun?" His voice was dangerously quiet. "Yes, even Mila says you're too uptight. You never want to go out. You never want to do anything exciting. You just work and sleep and expect me to be happy with that." Lucas stared at me for a long moment, something shifting in his expression. "I see." He walked past me back to the living room, but instead of rejoining the group, he headed upstairs. I heard our bedroom door close with a soft click. "Where's Lucas going?" asked Helen, my mother-in-law, her sharp blue eyes missing nothing. "He has a headache," I lied smoothly. "You know how he gets when he's stressed about work." Helen's lips pressed into a thin line, but she said nothing. Paul, however, gave me a look that could freeze water. The party continued, but the energy had shifted. I found myself gravitating towards Simon, laughing a little too loudly at his jokes, touching his arm when I spoke. When he offered to help me clean up, I accepted eagerly. "Your husband seemed upset," Simon said as we loaded the dishwasher. "Lucas is always upset about something. He's been distant for months. I don't think he even cares about me anymore." "That's his loss," Simon said, stepping closer. "Any man would be lucky to have you." Heat flooded my cheeks. "You're sweet." "I'm honest." He handed me the last plate, his fingers brushing mine. "If you ever need someone to talk to, You have my number." After everyone left, I found Lucas in our bedroom, sitting on the edge of the bed with his phone in his hands. He was staring at the group photo from earlier, his face unreadable. "Are you going to pout all night?" I asked, beginning to undress. "I'm not pouting, Evadne, I'm thinking." "About what?" "How to be even more boring than you already are." Lucas looked up at me then, and something in his eyes made me take a step back. "I'm thinking about when you stopped respecting me, and when I stopped mattering to you." "Don't be dramatic, Lucas. It was just a stupid photo." "Was it?" He set the phone aside and stood up. "Because from where I was standing, it looked like you were enjoying another man's hands on you, in front of our friends, in front of my family. You're making this into something it's not. Simon is your friend, not some random guy, and even if he wasn't, I'm allowed to have friends. Friends don't touch each other like that, Evadne, and wives don't encourage it." I turned away from him, frustrated by his inability to understand. Maybe if you paid half as much attention to me as Simon does, I wouldn't need to get it from someone else. The silence that followed was deafening. When I turned back around, Lucas was already in the bathroom, the door locked behind him. Later that night, as Lucas slept beside me, I pulled out my phone and scrolled through the photos from the evening. In every single one with Simon, I was smiling, really smiling for the first time in months. Without thinking too much about it, I opened my messages. "Thanks for making tonight fun. You're right, some people know how to appreciate a good thing." I sent the text to Simon and immediately felt a thrill of excitement. Within minutes, he responded, "Anytime, beautiful. Sweet dreams." I fell asleep with my phone clutched to my chest, feeling more alive than I had in years. I didn't notice Lucas lying awake beside me, staring at the ceiling until dawn. Monday morning arrived grey and drizzly, matching the atmosphere in our house. Lucas had barely spoken to me over the weekend, spending most of his time in his home office or playing with our 9-year-old daughter Ava in the backyard. I told myself I didn't care about his silent treatment, but the knot in my stomach suggested otherwise. At the medical office where I worked as an administrative assistant, I threw myself into my tasks with unusual enthusiasm. Anything to distract myself from the growing tension at home. During my lunch break, I sat in the employee break room, picking at a salad and scrolling through my phone when a message popped up. "How's your Monday treating you? Hope it's better than your husband's mood was Saturday night." "Simon." My heart skipped a beat. I glanced around the empty break room before typing back. "Could be better. Some people don't know how to let things go." "His loss is someone else's gain. Want to grab coffee after work? Just as friends, of course." I stared at the message for a full minute, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. This was dangerous territory, and I knew it. But the excitement coursing through my veins was intoxicating after months of feeling invisible in my own marriage. "I'd like that. The coffee shop on Main Street at 5:30. "Perfect. Looking forward to it." The rest of my workday passed in a blur of anticipation and guilt. I found myself checking my appearance in the bathroom mirror more often than usual, applying fresh lipstick and fluffing my hair. When my colleague Jenny asked if I had plans, I lied and said I was meeting my sister. At 5:25, I sat in my car in the coffee shop parking lot, hands trembling as I reapplied my lipstick one more time. My phone buzzed with a text from Lucas. "When will you be home? Ava has a school project due tomorrow." I stared at the message, guilt washing over me. But then I remembered how he'd ignored me all weekend, how he'd made me feel like a criminal for having a little fun. I turned off my phone and walked into the coffee shop. Simon was already there, looking handsome in his navy business suit, 2 cups of coffee waiting on a corner table. He stood when he saw me, that charming smile spreading across his face. "You look beautiful, Evadne. That color is perfect on you." I'd changed from my work clothes into an emerald green dress that I knew brought out my eyes. "Thank you. You clean up pretty well yourself." We sat across from each other, and for the first time in months, I felt truly seen. Simon asked about my job, my interests, my dreams, things Lucas hadn't bothered to inquire about in years. "So what's the story with you and Lucas?" Simon asked after we'd been talking for an hour. "You seem unhappy." I sighed, wrapping my hands around my coffee cup. "We're just in different places, I guess. He's content with his routine. Work, home, sleep, repeat. I want more from life." "What kind of more?" "Adventure, romance, someone who actually notices when I get my hair done or buy a new dress. Lucas hasn't complimented me in months, but he notices immediately when another man does." Simon reached across the table and covered my hand with his. "Any man who doesn't appreciate you is a fool, Evadne. You deserve to feel special." His touch sent electricity up my arm. "Thank you for saying that." "I mean it. You're intelligent, beautiful, funny, everything a man could want." We talked until the coffee shop began closing around us. As we walked to our cars, Simon caught my hand. "I had a wonderful time tonight. I hope we can do this again soon." "I'd like that," I whispered, my heart pounding as he leaned closer. For a moment, I thought he might kiss me. Instead, he squeezed my hand and stepped back. "Good night, Evadne. Drive safely." I floated home on a cloud of euphoria, feeling more attractive and desirable than I had in years. It wasn't until I pulled into my driveway that reality crashed back down. The house was dark except for the porch light Lucas had left on for me. Inside, I found him at the kitchen table, helping Ava with her science project. They both looked up when I entered. "Mommy, where were you? Daddy said you were working late, but your office was closed when he called." My blood ran cold. I had to run errands after work. You know how busy Mondays are." Lucas's eyes never left my face. "Errands? Of course. Did you get everything you needed?" "Yes," I said, avoiding his gaze. "I'm going to change clothes." As I headed upstairs, I heard Ava ask, "Daddy, why does Mommy smell like coffee?" "I thought she doesn't like coffee." Lucas's response was too quiet for me to hear, but the tone made my stomach clench. Over the next few weeks, Simon and I fell into a pattern. Coffee dates became lunch meetings, which became long walks in the park during my extended lunch breaks. We texted constantly, good morning messages, funny memes, little compliments that made my day brighter. "You're glowing lately," my sister Mila observed during our weekly phone call. "What's your secret?" "I've just been taking better care of myself. Maybe Lucas will finally notice." "Good for you. That man takes you for granted. A little competition might wake him up." I didn't tell her about Simon, but her words validated what I was already feeling. Lucas had become complacent in our marriage, and maybe it was time he realized what he had before it was too late. The guilt was always there, lurking in the background, but it was overshadowed by the intoxicating rush of feeling wanted again. Simon made me laugh, made me feel beautiful, made me remember who I used to be before I became just Lucas's wife and Ava's mother. "I think about you all the time," Simon texted one afternoon. "Is that wrong?" "If it's wrong, I don't want to be right," I replied, my heart racing as I hit send. "We should have dinner soon, somewhere nice. You deserve to be treated like the queen you are." I stared at the message, knowing that accepting would cross a line I couldn't uncross. But the thought of being wined and dined, of feeling special and desired, was too tempting to resist. "I'd love that. When?" "Friday night. I know the perfect place." Friday night, Lucas had mentioned something about working late on a big client's taxes. It would be perfect. "It's a date," I typed, then immediately deleted it and wrote "sounds perfect" instead. But we both knew what it really was. Friday evening arrived with unseasonable warmth for October. I'd told Lucas I was having dinner with Mila, a lie that rolled off my tongue easier than it should have. He barely looked up from his laptop when I announced I was leaving. "Don't wait up," I said, checking my reflection in the hallway mirror one last time. I'd chosen a black wrap dress that hugged my curves and heels that made my legs look endless. Lucas murmured, not even glancing my way. "Have fun with your sister." The dismissive tone stung, but it also reinforced my decision. When was the last time he'd really looked at me? When had he last cared where I was going or what I was doing? Bella Notte was a small Italian restaurant across town, intimate and dimly lit with candles flickering on every table. Simon was waiting for me at a corner table, looking devastatingly handsome in a charcoal suit and burgundy tie. "Wow," he breathed as I approached. "You look absolutely stunning, Evadne." He stood to pull out my chair, his hand lingering on my bare shoulder as I sat down. The simple touch sent shivers through my entire body. "This place is beautiful," I said, looking around at the romantic atmosphere. Fresh roses adorned each table, and soft jazz played in the background. "Only the best for you," Simon replied, his eyes never leaving my face. "I ordered us a bottle of Chianti. I hope that's okay." "Perfect." I rarely drank wine at home. Lucas preferred beer and thought wine was pretentious. But tonight, I wanted to be someone different, someone sophisticated and desirable. As the evening progressed, the wine loosened my inhibitions, and Simon's attention went to my head like champagne bubbles. He listened intently as I talked about my dreams of traveling, of maybe going back to school, of all the things I'd put on hold when I got married so young. "You're too young to give up on your dreams," he said, reaching across the table to stroke my hand. 22 is practically a child. You couldn't have known what you really wanted. Lucas thinks I'm being silly. He says we have responsibilities now, that dreams are for people without mortgages and children. Lucas sounds like he's given up on life. That doesn't mean you have to. The waiter brought our entrees, lobster ravioli for me, ossobuco for Simon. But I barely tasted the food. I was drunk on attention, on feeling beautiful and interesting and alive again. My phone buzzed on the table. Lucas's name appeared on the screen. "Aren't you going to answer?" Simon asked. I glanced at the message preview. "Ava asking when you'll be home. What should I tell her?" "It's nothing important," I said, flipping the phone face down. "Where were we?" Simon's smile was knowing. "We were talking about what you really want out of life." "I want to feel alive again. I want someone to see me, really see me." "I see you, Evadne. I see how beautiful you are, how intelligent, how passionate. Any man who doesn't appreciate that is a fool." His hand covered mine completely now, his thumb tracing circles on my palm. The touch was electric, intimate in a way that made my breath catch. "Simon." "I know this is complicated," he said softly, "but I can't stop thinking about you, about us, about what we could have together." My heart hammered against my ribs. "We can't. I'm married. You're Lucas's friend." "Are we friends, though? Really? We barely see each other outside of group settings. And your marriage—" He let the sentence hang in the air. "What about my marriage?" "It's obvious you're unhappy, Evadne. You deserve so much more than what you have." The wine, the candlelight, the way he was looking at me, it all combined into a perfect storm of temptation. When he suggested we take a walk after dinner, I agreed without hesitation. The restaurant's parking lot was dimly lit, shadows dancing between the cars. Simon walked me to my vehicle, his hand on the small of my back, sending heat through the thin fabric of my dress. "I had an amazing time tonight," he said as we reached my car. "Me too. I can't remember the last time I felt so what? So beautiful, so interesting, so wanted." He stepped closer, close enough that I could smell his cologne, could see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes. "You are all of those things, Evadne, and more." His hand came up to cut my cheek, and I leaned into the touch without thinking. For a moment we stood frozen like that, the air between us charged with possibility. Then my phone rang, Lucas's ringtone cutting through the night like a knife. The spell broke. Simon stepped back, and I fumbled for my phone with shaking hands. "I should go," I whispered. "Of course. But Ivan—" He caught my hand as I reached for my car door. "This isn't over. What we have, it's special." Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. I drove home in a daze, my lips tingling as if he'd actually kissed me. The house was quiet when I slipped inside, Lucas's office light still glowing under the door. I crept upstairs, grateful to avoid a confrontation. But as I changed into my pajamas, I caught sight of myself in the mirror. My cheeks were flushed, my eyes bright, my lips swollen from nervous biting. I looked like a woman who'd been thoroughly seduced, even though nothing had actually happened. Had it, though? Wasn't what I'd done tonight a betrayal in its own way? Wasn't the intimacy I'd shared with Simon, the emotional connection, just as damaging as a physical affair? I pushed the thoughts away and climbed into bed, but sleep eluded me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Simon's face, felt his hand on my cheek, heard his voice telling me I deserved more. Maybe I did deserve more. Maybe it was time to stop settling for a marriage that had become more like a business partnership. Maybe it was time to choose happiness over security. My phone buzzed with a text from Simon. "Thank you for a perfect evening. You're even more amazing than I imagined. Sweet dreams, beautiful." I hugged the phone to my chest, a smile spreading across my face for the first time in months. Whatever happened next, at least I knew I was still capable of feeling this alive. The gossip started on Monday morning at the school drop-off. I noticed the way conversation stopped when I approached, how other mothers smiled too brightly and asked overly casual questions about my weekend. "Evadne, how lovely to see you," chirped Sandra Morrison, the PTA president whose fake smile never reached her eyes. "I heard you had dinner at Bella Notte Friday night. Such a romantic little place." My blood turned to ice. "Oh, yes, my sister and I tried it out." "Your sister? How nice. Though I could have sworn I saw you with a man. Dark hair, very handsome. Must have been mistaken." She walked away before I could respond, leaving me standing frozen by my car as other parents whispered behind their hands. By Tuesday, the whispers had reached Helen, my mother-in-law. She called during my lunch break, her voice tight with barely controlled fury. "Evadne, we need to talk. Can you come by after work?" "I'm actually quite busy today, Helen. Maybe this weekend." "Now, Evadne, this can't wait." Helen's house was a shrine to Lucas's childhood, filled with family photos and his academic achievements. She was waiting in her pristine living room, her silver hair pulled back severely, and her blue eyes blazing with anger. "Sit down," she commanded. I perched on the edge of her floral sofa, my hands folded in my lap like a scolded child. "I've been hearing some very disturbing rumors about you, Evadne. Rumors about you having dinner with men who aren't your husband. People love to gossip, Helen. You know how it is. So you're denying it?" I met her gaze steadily. "I'm saying people see what they want to see and hear what they want to hear." "Don't play word games with me, young lady. I've known you for 12 years, and I can tell when you're lying." Heat flooded my cheeks. Even if I did have dinner with a friend, that's hardly a crime. Lucas has dinner with colleagues all the time. Lucas's colleagues aren't attractive single men who look at him like he's their next meal. "I don't know what you're talking about." Helen stood and walked to her mantelpiece, picking up a framed photo of Lucas and Ava at last year's father-daughter dance. "My son is a good man, Evadne. He works hard, he provides for his family, and he loves you and Ava more than life itself. If he loves me so much, maybe he should show it once in a while." The words slipped out before I could stop them, and Helen's face went white with rage. "Show it? He shows it every single day by going to work, by paying the mortgage, by being faithful and reliable and present. What more do you want from him?" "I want him to see me. I want him to notice when I get my hair done or buy a new dress. I want him to take me out to dinner and tell me I'm beautiful. I want to feel like his wife, not his roommate." "So you decided to get those things from another man?" "I haven't done anything wrong." "Haven't you? Then why are you being so defensive? Why won't you look me in the eye?" I stood abruptly, my hands shaking. "I don't have to listen to this. You've never liked me, Helen. You've always thought Lucas could do better. Right now, I'm thinking he can. The words hit like a physical blow. I grabbed my purse and headed for the door, but Helen's voice stopped me. If you destroy my son's marriage, if you hurt my granddaughter, I will never forgive you, and neither will Lucas. I drove home with tears streaming down my face, Helen's words echoing in my ears. But by the time I pulled into my driveway, anger had replaced the hurt. How dare she judge me? How dare any of them judge me for trying to find a little happiness? Lucas was in the kitchen when I walked in, helping Ava with her homework at the table. They both looked up when I entered, and I saw something in Lucas's eyes that made my stomach drop. "How was your day?" he asked quietly. "Fine, busy." "I'm sure, my mother called." Ava looked between us, sensing the tension. "Grandma Helen called. Is she coming for dinner?" "Not tonight, sweetheart," Lucas said, never taking his eyes off me. "Why don't you go watch TV for a bit? Mom and I need to talk." After Ava left, Lucas leaned back in his chair and studied me with an expression I'd never seen before. It was calm, calculating, and somehow more terrifying than anger would have been. "So," he said conversationally, "how's Simon?" My heart stopped. "What?" "Simon Patel, my friend, the one you've been having coffee dates with, the one you had dinner with Friday night while lying to both me and our daughter about where you were going." "Lucas, I can explain. Can you? Because I'm very interested to hear how you explain lying to your family, sneaking around with another man, and making me look like a fool in front of the entire community." "It's not what you think." "What I think is that my wife has been having an affair. What I think is that she's been lying to me for weeks while carrying on with someone I considered a friend. What I think is that she's been so busy playing games that she forgot she has a husband and a daughter who love her. I haven't forgotten anything. And it's not an affair. We're just friends." "Friends don't lie about seeing each other, Evadne. Friends don't sneak around and make up stories about where they're going. Friends don't look at each other the way you two were looking at each other in that photo." "What photo?" Lucas pulled out his phone and showed me the group picture from the party weeks ago. But this wasn't the version I remembered. This one was zoomed in, cropped to show just Simon and me. His hand on my waist, my body leaning into his, both of us smiling with an intimacy that was unmistakable. "Someone posted this on social media," Lucas said quietly. "Tagged both of us. Do you know how humiliating it was to have my co-workers asking me about my wife's friend?" Shame washed over me, but I pushed it down. "You're making this into something it's not, Lucas. Yes, I've been spending time with Simon. Yes, I should have told you, but nothing inappropriate has happened." "Nothing inappropriate?" Lucas's voice rose for the first time. "You've been emotionally cheating on me for weeks. You've been giving another man the attention and affection that should belong to your husband. Maybe if you wanted my attention and affection, you should have tried earning it." The silence that followed was deafening. Lucas stared at me for a long moment, then slowly nodded. "I see. So this is my fault. I drove you to it." "I didn't say that. You didn't have to." He stood and walked to the window, his back to me. "Tell me something, Evadne. When did you stop loving me?" The question caught me off guard. I do love you, Lucas." "Do you?" "Because the woman I married would never have done this. The woman I married would have talked to me if she was unhappy. She would have tried to fix our problems instead of running to another man." "I tried talking to you. You never listen." When? When did you try?" I opened my mouth to respond, then closed it again. When had I tried? Really tried, not just complained or criticized or made passive-aggressive comments? "That's what I thought," Lucas said sadly. "You gave up on us, Evadne. You gave up on our marriage without even trying to save it." He walked past me toward the stairs, then paused. "I'll be sleeping in the guest room tonight, and for the foreseeable future." "Lucas, wait. I need time to think, time to figure out what I want to do about this." "What do you mean, what you want to do?" He turned back to me, and the look in his eyes made my blood run cold. "I mean, I need to decide if this marriage is worth saving. Because right now, I'm not sure it is." The next morning, Lucas was gone before I woke up. His coffee cup sat in the sink, and a note on the counter informed me he'd taken Ava to school and would be working late. The house felt empty and cold, echoing with the weight of our conversation the night before. I called in sick to work, unable to face the knowing looks and whispered conversations that had become my daily reality. Instead, I spent the day alternating between fury and panic, replaying Lucas's words over and over. You gave up on us, Evadne. You gave up on our marriage without even trying to save it. Had I? Or had I simply refused to settle for a marriage that had become more obligation than love? My phone buzzed with a text from Simon. Haven't heard from you in a few days. Everything okay? I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. Everything was falling apart, and part of me wanted to run straight to Simon, to lose myself in his attention and validation. But another part of me, a part I'd been ignoring for weeks, whispered that Lucas was right. I had given up. I had chosen the easy path of fantasy over the hard work of reality. Can't talk right now. Family stuff, I replied, then immediately turned off my phone. Lucas came home after midnight, moving quietly through the house like a ghost. I heard him in his office, the soft clicking of keyboard keys and the rustle of papers. When I crept downstairs for water, I saw light under his door and heard him on the phone with someone, his voice too low to make out words. The pattern continued for days. Lucas left early, came home late, and spoke to me only when necessary. Ava began asking questions I couldn't answer. Why is Daddy sleeping in the guest room? Are you and Daddy getting divorced like Tommy's parents? No, sweetheart. Daddy and I are just working through some things. Is it because of the man who held your waist at the party? I heard Grandma Helen telling Uncle Paul that you have a boyfriend. My heart shattered. Ava, honey, it's complicated. I don't want you to have a boyfriend, Mummy. I want you and Daddy to be happy again. That night, I tried to talk to Lucas when he came home. I waited in the kitchen with 2 cups of tea, hoping to bridge the growing chasm between us. We need to talk, I said as he walked through the door. Do we? I thought you'd said everything you needed to say. Lucas, please. I know I made mistakes, but we can fix this. We can go to counseling. We can work through our problems. Our problems? He sat across from me, his face impassive. What problems are those, Evadne? The problem where you decided to have an emotional affair? The problem where you lied to me for weeks? The problem where you made me look like a fool in front of everyone we know? I know I handled things wrong, but I was lonely, Lucas. I felt invisible in my own marriage. So you decided to make yourself visible to another man. It wasn't like that. What was it like then? Explain it to me, because I'm having trouble understanding how my wife ended up in another man's arms. Nothing physical happened. Physical? Lucas laughed bitterly. You think this is about physical? Evadne, you gave him pieces of yourself that belonged to me. You shared your thoughts, your dreams, your problems with him instead of with your husband. You chose him over me, over our family, over everything we built together. Tears streamed down my face. I'm sorry, Lucas. I'm so sorry. Tell me how to fix this. He was quiet for a long moment, studying my face with those calm green eyes that had once looked at me with such love. I don't think you can, he said finally. I don't think I can ever trust you again. Don't say that. Please, Lucas, I'll do anything. Will you? Will you cut all contact with Simon? Will you quit your job if I ask you to? Will you give me access to your phone, your email, your social media accounts? Will you go to individual therapy to figure out why you thought betraying your family was acceptable? The list felt overwhelming, suffocating. That's a lot to ask. Is it? Is it too much to ask my wife to prove she's committed to our marriage? I need time to think about all of this. Something shifted in Lucas's expression, a door slamming shut that I hadn't even realized was still open. Time to think. Of course. He stood and walked to the kitchen counter, where he'd left a manila folder I hadn't noticed before. Well, while you're thinking, maybe you should look at this. He slid the folder across the table to me. With trembling hands, I opened it. The first page was a printout of text messages. My text messages with Simon, going back weeks. Every flirtatious comment, every complaint about Lucas, every lie I'd told was there in black and white. How did you... Our phone plan, Evadne. I'm the primary account holder. I can access any line on the plan. I flipped through more pages, restaurant receipts, location data from my phone showing exactly where I'd been and when, photos from social media that I'd forgotten existed, a witness statement from someone who'd seen Simon and me at the coffee shop, holding hands across the table. You've been spying on me. I've been protecting myself. And our daughter. Protecting yourself from what? From a wife who lies so easily I'm not sure she even knows what the truth is anymore. The words hit like physical blows. I looked up at him, this man I'd been married to for 12 years, and realized I didn't recognize him anymore. The gentle, patient Lucas I'd known was gone, replaced by someone cold and calculating. What are you going to do with all this? That depends on you. What do you mean? Lucas sat back down and folded his hands on the table. I've already filed for legal separation, Evadne. The papers are being processed as we speak. The room spun around me. You what? I've also filed for temporary custody of Ava and exclusive use of the marital home. You can't do that. She's my daughter, too. She is, but I'm the parent who hasn't been lying and sneaking around. I'm the parent who's been present and focused on her well-being instead of chasing after other people. This is insane, Lucas. You're destroying our family over nothing. Over nothing? His voice was deadly quiet. You think your affair is nothing? You think the lies, the betrayal, the complete disrespect for your marriage vows is nothing? It wasn't an affair. Nothing happened. Something did happen, Evadne. You fell in love with another man. Maybe not physically, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually. You chose him over me. And you did it while lying to my face every single day. I was sobbing now, great heaving sobs that shook my entire body. Please, Lucas, please don't do this. I'll end it with Simon. I'll do whatever you want. Just don't take Ava away from me. I'm not taking her away. I'm protecting her from the chaos you've created. From the mother who thinks lying and cheating are acceptable as long as you don't get caught. I never meant for this to happen. But it did happen, and now we all have to live with the consequences. He stood and walked toward the door, then turned back one more time. The separation papers will be served tomorrow. I suggest you get a lawyer, Evadne, because this is just the beginning. As his footsteps disappeared up the stairs, I sat alone in the kitchen, surrounded by the evidence of my betrayal and the ruins of my marriage. For the first time since this whole nightmare began, I understood what I'd really lost, and I understood that it might be too late to get it back. The law office smelled like leather and disappointment. I sat in an uncomfortable chair across from Lucas, our lawyers between us like referees in a boxing match that had already been decided. 3 weeks had passed since Lucas served me with separation papers, 3 weeks of living in a hotel while he and Ava remained in our home. Mrs. Morrow, my lawyer, Janet Walsh, said gently, I need you to understand the strength of your husband's case. The evidence he's presented is comprehensive. She was being kind. The truth was, Lucas had documented everything with the methodical precision of the accountant he was. Phone records, credit card statements, witness testimonies, social media posts. He'd built an airtight case that painted me as an unfaithful wife and unreliable mother. However, Janet continued, Mr. Morrow's attorney has indicated that he's willing to negotiate on certain terms. I looked across the table at Lucas, hoping to see some softness in his eyes, some hint of the man who'd once loved me enough to build a life together. Instead, I found the same calm, cold assessment that had become his default expression over the past month. What kind of terms? I asked. Lucas's lawyer, a sharp-faced woman named Patricia Stone, opened a file folder. Mr. Morrow is prepared to offer joint custody of Ava, with him having primary physical custody. Mrs. Morrow would have supervised visitation initially, transitioning to overnight visits after 6 months of compliance with court orders. Supervised visitation? The words came out as a whisper. You want to treat me like I'm dangerous to my own daughter? You've demonstrated poor judgment and a pattern of deception, Patricia replied coolly. Mr. Morrow simply wants to ensure Ava's emotional well-being during this transition. This is ridiculous, Lucas. I'm her mother. He spoke for the first time since we'd sat down. You're also the mother who lied to her about where you were going when you went on dates with another man. You're the mother who put your own selfish desires ahead of your family's stability. I made mistakes, but I would never hurt Ava. You already have hurt her. She's been asking why Mommy doesn't live at home anymore. She's been having nightmares. Her teacher says she's been distracted and emotional at school. Guilt crashed over me like a wave. I'd been so focused on my own pain that I hadn't fully considered what this was doing to our daughter. What else? Janet asked, her voice resigned. Patricia consulted her notes. Mr. Morrow will retain the family home in primary custody. Mrs. Morrow will receive limited spousal support for 2 years, contingent on her maintaining employment and having no contact with Simon Patel. No contact with Simon? I looked at Lucas in surprise. You're trying to control who I can be friends with? Simon isn't your friend, Evadne. He's the man you had an affair with, the man who helped you destroy our marriage. We didn't have an affair. Lucas reached into his briefcase and pulled out a manila folder, a different one from the evidence he'd shown me at home. He slid it across the table to me. Go ahead, open it. With trembling hands, I opened the folder. The first page was a printout of text messages between Simon and me, but these weren't the flirtatious exchanges Lucas had shown me before. These were from the past 3 weeks, messages I'd forgotten I'd sent during my darkest moments. I can't stop thinking about what could have been between us. Lucas will never understand me the way you do. Maybe we should have just run away together when we had the chance. My face burned with shame as I read my own desperate words I'd typed in moments of anger and self-pity, never thinking they'd be used against me in a court of law. There are also phone records showing 17 calls between you and Mr. Patel in the past 3 weeks, Patricia added, including a 2-hour conversation last Tuesday night. I remembered that call. I'd been drunk and crying, pouring my heart out to Simon about how unfair Lucas was being, how he was trying to take Ava away from me. Simon had been sympathetic but distant, and I'd sensed his discomfort, even through my wine-soaked haze. Simon and I are friends, I said weakly. I was upset and needed someone to talk to. You needed someone to talk to, so you called your affair partner instead of a therapist, a family member, or a girlfriend, Lucas said. Even now, even after everything that's happened, you're still choosing him over appropriate boundaries. I wasn't... Mrs. Morrow, Janet interrupted gently, I think we need to seriously consider accepting these terms. Given the evidence, a judge is likely to be far less generous. I looked around the room at the faces staring back at me. Janet looked sympathetic but defeated. Patricia looked satisfied, like a cat who'd cornered a mouse. Lucas looked tired and sad, but resolute. What if I agree to counseling? What if I prove I can change? You can certainly pursue counseling, Patricia replied. In fact, it's required under the terms of the agreement. But Mr. Morrow has made it clear that he has no interest in reconciliation. I turned to Lucas, my heart breaking all over again. Is that true? You won't even try? For the first time since we'd entered the room, his composure cracked slightly. You want to know what trying looks like, Evadne? Trying is 12 years of marriage where I worked every day to provide for our family. Trying is coming home every night, even when work was stressful. Trying is helping with homework and household chores, and never complaining when you decided you were too tired for intimacy. His voice grew stronger, more passionate. Trying is asking you repeatedly if you were happy, if there was anything I could do differently, if you wanted to go to counseling, or take a vacation, or change something about our life together. Do you remember what you always said? I did remember. I'd always said everything was fine, that I was just tired or stressed or busy. I'd never actually told him I was unhappy until it was too late. Trying, Lucas continued, is not having an emotional affair the moment your marriage hits a rough patch. Trying is not lying to your husband and daughter for months while you play house with another man. Trying is not blaming everyone else for the choices you made. Tears streamed down my face, but Lucas wasn't finished. I tried, Evadne. I tried for 12 years to be the husband you needed. But you never tried to be the wife I deserved. You just took and took and took until there was nothing left, and then you went looking for someone else to take from. The room fell silent except for my quiet sobs. Finally, Patricia cleared her throat. Do we have an agreement? I looked at Janet, who nodded encouragingly. I looked at Lucas, who was staring out the window at something I couldn't see. I looked at the papers spread across the table, the legal documentation of the end of my marriage and the beginning of a very different life. If I sign this, what happens to us? I asked Lucas. There is no us anymore, Evadne. There's you and there's me and there's Ava, and we're going to figure out how to co-parent our daughter in a way that doesn't cause her any more pain than we already have. Do you hate me? He was quiet for a long moment. No, I don't hate you, but I don't trust you, I don't respect you, and I don't love you anymore. And that's something you're going to have to live with. With shaking hands, I picked up the pen and signed my name to the papers that would dissolve my marriage and change my life forever. As I wrote Evadne Morrow for what might be the last time, I thought about all the choices that had led me to this moment. I thought about the party, where I'd let Simon hold my waist, the coffee dates where I'd complained about my husband, the romantic dinner where I'd ignored Lucas's calls. I thought about every lie I'd told, every boundary I'd crossed, every moment I'd chosen fantasy over reality. It's done, Janet said softly as I set down the pen. Lucas stood and gathered his papers. Patricia will file these with the court today. The separation will be official by the end of the week. Lucas, I called as he headed for the door. I really am sorry, for all of it. He paused with his hand on the doorknob. I know you are, Evadne, but sorry doesn't fix what you broke. And some things, once they're broken, can't be put back together. As the door closed behind him, I sat alone with my lawyer in the sterile conference room, surrounded by the legal remnants of a marriage that had died not from lack of love, but from lack of effort, honesty, and respect. I'd thought I was just having a little harmless fun when I let Simon hold my waist at that party. I'd thought I was just seeking the attention I deserved when I started our coffee dates. I'd thought I was just exploring what I might be missing when I had dinner with him that night. But what I'd really been doing was choosing momentary validation over lasting commitment, choosing the easy path over the hard work of marriage, choosing to blame others instead of looking at my own failures. Now I was 34 years old, facing life as a single mother with supervised visitation, living in a hotel room and working at a job that barely paid my bills. Simon had disappeared from my life the moment things got complicated, proving that his interest in me had been more about the thrill of the chase than any real connection. And Lucas, the man who'd loved me faithfully for 12 years, who'd worked every day to provide for our family, who'd tried repeatedly to connect with me only to be shut out, was moving on without me. As I walked out of the law office into the harsh afternoon sunlight, I realized that I'd gotten exactly what I'd thought I wanted. Freedom from a marriage I'd convinced myself was boring and unfulfilling. The only problem was that I'd destroyed everything good in my life to get it.